What's up, Hoof listeners? Welcome back to the Hoof Podcast. Post championship weekend. What a great slate of games we had, right? Came down to the wire really close. Seemed like a lot of action throughout. I thought the championship games actually turned out to be good games to watch. Right? Which is sometimes not always the case. A lot of times there's blowouts, 35-7, something like that. But these two games I thought were pretty good. Had a good time with family and everything.
I mean, I would argue the NFC game was a lot more competitive and fun to watch than the AFC game. The AFC game, I mean, we're going to break it down in a minute here, but it just felt like the outcome was already done at the beginning. Like the first few plays, you just kind of knew. You never felt like control was lost. In the NFC game, obviously, it was two different stories of two different halves, but quite exciting in both ways, I thought, at least. But yeah, we'll talk about it.
What'd you do on Sunday? What'd you do? Hang out with the family?
Or? It was Logan's birthday, my son's third birthday, so we did have people over for cake and ice cream. So my siblings came over, a few of them, and we watched the game and had cake and ice cream for Logan. So it was a fun little celebration. And then I got to watch the second game, with people. So yeah, it was fun. We had people, we had, food, snacks, all that good stuff. Typical, football watching snacks and things.
It feels like it's like championship weekend's like the last real football Sunday.
Yeah.
Multiple games.
Teams,
you're not really worried because there's more football, but like I think when you watch the Super Bowl, it's a whole different thing. It's like, okay, your mom's asking you about it. You're like, okay, you don't even watch football.
The gambling, right?
Everyone talks about the halftime show.
Exactly,
halftime show. Right.
The coin flip, the commercials. Yeah, it's a different focus. Yeah,
completely different. So I feel like that was the final, NFL Sunday for us, people who are really into football. And in Pro Bowl weekend, I don't even watch it. I haven't watched Pro Bowl football in a long time. I think the only time I've watched this, like the skill competition, is like in the summertime when you see it on YouTube. And you're like, oh, there's Stephon Diggs,
right. On the replay when there's no football in the dead time and ESPN plays it again. Yeah. You're right. I do. That's it. That is where I see it. I think the last actual Pro Bowl I remember watching, was the one where Brian Moorman got whacked. Because I was like, hey, the Bills representing. Yeah, Brian Moorman. And he got whacked.
Oh, yeah.
And
they just almost hit our franchise player.
Like, I know,
oh
right?
God,
You're like, oh, okay? No, exactly, right? Yeah, our best player of 2 decades, pretty much. So that was, right, yeah, the punter. But yeah, that was a long time ago, and the Pro Bowl is a joke in the NFL.
Sean Taylor made that hit, right?
Right. Yeah, I think so. Right? Yeah, it was. I mean, obviously,
phenomenal player to watch back in the day.
Yeah. And it was real football, like they whacked them.
I don't know how I feel about the flag football competition they got going on. It's like
stupid. Come on now.
Like I can appreciate like the track and field ability. Like everyone's super fast, right? But it's funny because they still hit each other. It's like you'll see a bump here and there. The guy was flying, but I just can't buy into it. I feel like they just ran out of ideas with the Pro Bowl, and there's nothing. No good ideas are coming out of it. You know what I mean?
Definitely need to hit the reset button and figure something out. Yeah.
There's got to be something.
Yeah.
But let's jump into the games a little bit here. Let's start with the Chiefs. Chiefs pull this one out, 17-10. Lamar struggles versus the Chiefs defense. I think that was pretty apparent.
Big time. Yeah. Ravens, man. Oh my God. They didn't run the ball, right? Like you're talking about the Chiefs defense. Everybody knows they're bad against the run. They're really good against the pass. Got to run it on them. Hey, guess what? Lamar and this team is really good at running the ball, and they don't run the ball pretty much all game. And it was so frustrating watching them because I was just like, what are you doing? Like you're trying to lose the game. And, you could talk about the close calls and the no calls by the refs, right? People are throwing conspiracy stuff out there, but in my mind,
I'd love to find an excuse for the Ravens.
Oh
I would.
God, Lamar, they just blew it themselves, right? They choked when it mattered most. And the most frustrating part for me as a Bills fan, all day long, from the minute I woke up that morning, all I could think is, this should be us. God dang it, this should be us. What the hell? This should be the Buffalo Bills in this game. We would beat this team. I know we would. And sure enough, Lamar and the Ravens, although they were good all year and they were good last week, they just choked in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Other way
would
to
have been, and it would have been closer if the rookie Zay Flowers didn't fumble, jumping into the end zone.
Again, you can talk about all the little things. Yeah, at the 1 yard line there, that was a huge play. But and the interception, obviously, but there was pass interference, clear pass interference in my mind. I mean, very clear, and it was not called. So, I mean, yeah, those were game-changing plays, and that's what matters, right? Like you look at the score. I mean, Chiefs 17. That's pathetic, right? Their offense is not why they're winning games these days. It's their defense, right?
Right. And
Their
defense was
offense
great in this game for them.
only gets a few big plays, and that's enough, and they're capable of doing that. But it's really their defense that has been pulling the trigger and doing really well and stepping up now, which is a new thing for them. But they're in the same exact place again. Hello, back to the Super Bowl again. The dang Chiefs. It's frustrating, but it's they found a way to prevail. They took advantage of the Bills' injuries. They took advantage of the Ravens' bad game plan, and they made it through. And they're in the Super Bowl again.
I feel like towards the end of the game, they kind of made Lamar one-dimensional.
Oh yeah,
they were passing the ball a lot, right?
Yep.
And that's not the strength of the team. I know
like
they've
40
been better
times.
at that.
It was so bad,
right?
Yeah.
But I mean, no design quarterback runs.
Yeah.
I didn't notice any. Maybe I'm missing one.
Maybe a couple. I think he ran the ball like 6 times or something, or maybe 4 times. But they weren't designed runs from what I saw. Yeah.
Right. Just finding a hole or making a play. But you'll always have that. But like, that's how you beat the Chiefs in a close game like this, when you're having a tough day against a really tough defense who's confusing you. Spags is phenomenal at calling up the Chiefs defense and making multiple looks.
Oh yeah.
You could tell Lamar was really holding on to the ball a lot in the pocket.
It's just,
it's tough. It makes it tough, right? And that's why they're going to the Super Bowl. And there's something about the Chiefs' game planning or their strategy. They're just the best in the league at drawing up a game plan, right? It's Andy Reid and
absolutely.
Collectively, there's 80 years of football experience in the room on 40 years each side of the ball. I mean, that's it's unprecedented in today's football, right?
Yeah, and
nobody else can match that experience.
I would argue the point there, credit to them for adapting to today's game too. Yeah, they have 40 years of experience, but so does Bill Belichick, and he just choked for 3 straight years because he's not adapting, right? And they've been able to adapt and say, here's what works on offense, here's what works on defense, and kind of use each other to optimize this team in a way that has been phenomenal, right? They made it in their worst season yet, their worst roster yet, I would argue, on offense especially. They found a way to make it back to the Super Bowl, which is crazy. Yeah, this was the year to beat them.
So Mahomes' credit, I don't think he's trying to play hero ball or anything like that. I thought throughout the postseason, and in this game especially, he just played within the offense, took what they gave him. I mean, he still puts the ball perfect throw.
Oh my gosh!
What I mean? Like every time.
That one throw, oh my gosh! The one pass to Kelsey where he was down, 3 different guys were on Mahomes. And he just slings it up as he's going down, and somehow Kelsey dives and makes the catch for the first down.
Yeah,
and
wild.
The game is over. It was
it's just wild. The chemistry they have is just unmatched, right?
To sling it up like that, and to both be on either end of like, I guess I'll throw it up. I guess I'll dive and boom, make a one-handed catch and reel it in. It was, I mean, it's special what they have,
right?
And it's hard to replicate and top that. I mean, I still to this day believe if the Bills had one player back on defense, that we would have beat them and that we were the better team. And we beat them in the regular season the same way.
It came down to one play.
Exactly. We outlasted them in the regular season. And in the postseason, it was a coin flip and they got it, right? And it was unfortunate. And it sucks because now we have to sleep on that all year long. But until next season at least. But yeah, credit. I'm not taking any credit away from what the Chiefs are capable of. That's for sure.
Yeah. I was asking to put the question here. What makes them great in the postseason, right? Regular season, we've seen them be vulnerable, right? 6 losses this year. We haven't seen that in previous seasons, right? They've always had the 1 seed in previous years. So they have to go on the road and they still know how to dial it up and they know how to execute in the postseason. A lot different strategy this time, right? But they still win. So like what makes them great in the postseason? Because now they're winning in multiple ways in the postseason. I feel like historically it was like, oh, we'll let them go up 21 and then we're going to score 35 straight. That's kind of how it started out. But now it's like we're just going to play good defense and take advantage of every opportunity.
Yeah, I think the experience matters. You talked about the coaches. We already touched on that, but that's true, right? They come up with the best game plan for the opponent they're playing and execute it well, whether that's we need to go all out on offense in years past and score 35 points to their 30 and we win, or it's a year like this where it's like, okay, their offense is susceptible to this, and here's how we're going to game plan to limit their offense and just get done what we need to on our offense. And that's, again, they were able to execute those game plans efficiently. And I think experience in the coaching staff, but also this team, right? When you've been there before, there's no nerves, right? There's no pressure. There's no pressure. You are the guy to beat. Your confidence is sky high, right? Your whole team is like, we are the team. We're coming into their house. We don't care. You got to beat us. And that's what they did to Buffalo. And that's what they did to Baltimore, right? It was just a matter of, we're the team you got to beat. You got to step up to us.
Right.
And with that experience comes, and that presence, I would say, that approach, that whole confidence comes not making stupid mistakes, right? I mean, the Bills game, no turnovers.
I was going to say that
the fumble in the end zone, but no turnovers, no interceptions, no bad mistakes. Same thing in this game, right? No big, huge mistakes, no game-changing plays. They don't give that kind of thing up. And when you are focused and collective and now not feeling the pressure from the outside, that helps you stay focused in game and execute. And that's what they've been able to do so efficiently and so frustratingly. And at the same time, when something doesn't go their way, when they were down, they didn't panic. They don't panic. They're like, look, we know we're capable of coming right back, and our defense, 100% confidence and 100%, ability to execute and get the most out of every player and have faith in everything, the coaching staff, the players around you. That's what a team is, and that's what counts. Not that Baltimore or Buffalo or anybody else didn't have that, but that the Chiefs are the king of that, and that's why they reign in the postseason.
Yeah. And one thing to add to that is, the moment, right? You go back and watch these games and they recognize, like, this play, if we get this first down in this moment, we're going to be in a much better position than the other team, right? I feel like the Chiefs are so good at A, recognizing those moments, and B, executing in those moments. I feel like when you watch the Bills game, like, they had the moment in their hands and just didn't recognize the situation. If you get a first down here, you run the clock down, you score with no time left, you win. And I feel like if the Bills and Chiefs flipped, the Chiefs would recognize that moment and they would execute tactfully and win the game that way. And for the Baltimore game, it came down to, okay, it's a one-score game, but I think it was third down, and first down they could run the clock out, but if not, the Baltimore would have a shot at the end. But they just drew up this play. It was like Baltimore's playing close to the line. Pat Mahomes just tosses it up to one of the tight ends. I think it was Noah Gray.
Yeah,
and he's wide open. It's like, there's nothing you can do. He just they had that one in their back pocket for when they needed it, and they executed it exactly when they needed to. And I think that's the real difference between what the Chiefs are doing and what the other teams are doing. And yes, it's experience, but it's not like they're a super experienced team on the field. Pat Mahomes is only in his 7th year, right? 28.
Only. He's six NFC or AFC Championship games.
Yeah. But that's the facts. And Pacheco, what's he, a 2nd-year player? I mean, Rashee Rice, your leading receiver, is a rookie. I mean, it's just wild. It's wild to me that they continually recognize those moments and execute in those moments, whereas other teams still struggle with that. We saw it happen with the Lions. We saw it happen with the Bills, and we saw it happen with Baltimore.
I think what will be interesting for that team and that organization in general is when they have to transition away from Andy Reid. When he decides to step away and retire, then they are going to have a game plan in place of how do we keep this moving with that same momentum, with these same, core guys. Obviously, Mahomes isn't going anywhere. And Kelsey is obviously getting up there for a tight end as well, right? Like might be transitioning out as well at some point, and their ability to, again, bring in guys, do the same thing that they've been doing. I think coaching is obviously a huge key part of that. So whenever it is this year, if they win it and he walks away, or maybe next year or 2 years, whenever that is, they have to have a solid plan in place for, okay, here's how we're going to keep this same, workmanship and mentality going once Andy Reid steps away. And that might be the big opportunity for one of these other teams in the AFC to step up.
And Andy Reid,
who knows who it's going to be by then? But
I just don't see him stepping away anytime soon. I know there's rumors out there, but
exactly.
Why would you right now?
He's the greatest in the game right now, and there's no contention to that. Now that Belichick and all the other guys are gone, it's him and nobody else in his tier.
And he's the last guy from the old era, it seems like, in the AFC at least. If you want to throw Tomlin in his era, that's fine with me. But there's definitely a lot of turnover happening at head coach. They're getting a lot younger. I feel like the coordinators are getting super young.
Mm-hmm.
All right, more on that a little bit later here. But what do you think's next for Baltimore? I mean, the receivers that they drafted look like hits, right? Bateman, I thought, had a pretty good year. I think they wanted a little more from him, but I mean, to fill that void, you bring in Odell. We'll see if he resigns. I think it was a 1-year deal for him. I have to look it up.
It was. Yep, he's a free agent. Oh no, 2-year deal. 2-year deal for him. I think he got.
Okay, so he's back next year. But then Zay Flowers looks like a star. He's a star.
Absolutely. Yep, and especially for a young guy who's got a lot of upside. Yeah, we haven't seen the best of him yet.
Right, exactly.
There's a lot that I think what is the positive is you have something to build on, right? You were the best team in the AFC. You proved what you could. It's not going to be as easy next year because your division is not going to have banged up quarterbacks all year. But you are now that you've proven you can hang with the best. You can be there at the end. The momentum, the shift, the focus, I think, for Baltimore this past year was the change in offensive philosophy and how do we balance what Lamar does best and give him more weapons, right, in the passing game. And now I think, they have to reassess the run game with the injuries they've had there and everything that's gone on. It's like, okay, do we draft a running back high or do we sign a free agent or somebody who's going to be the guy to, because that's what we really want to do is run the ball and pass with that, right? You have Lamar, you want to pound and then open things up for him in the pass game. And I think that's going to be their biggest hole in my mind is figuring that position out and what they want to do moving forward. And then obviously retaining your coaches, as we've talked about in this show already, because you were that good, those guys are going to get head coaching interviews and already have. And like, okay, what happens if, one of them gets poached or, something happens on the player side. And obviously every team has free agency and things to deal with. But if I'm Baltimore, I'm not happy with the result of this game, obviously, but I'm looking at this as a major stepping stone toward what we can do next year. Yeah,
and I think their results show their dominance in the AFC. Like, okay, toughest division, arguably in the NFL, in the AFC North, and they win and they get the 1 seed with that, right? So it's but like I think the Pittsburgh Steelers will be better next year. Joe Burrow's coming back next year. Cleveland, Deshaun Watson will probably be healthy for them. So I mean,
it's scary.
They reload.
Much scarier,
right?
Yeah.
So
you could. It's not unfathomable to say Baltimore goes from first in the division to last, and that division alone, it's so competitive. That's not like, oh my God, they were the 1 seed last year and now they finished 4th. No, it's oh my God, everything went their way last year. A couple of close games they lose this year, and they end up in this position and not in the playoffs. But I think they have enough to build on to give them momentum toward.
Yeah, they'll certainly be competitive. They'll certainly be back in the playoffs.
Absolutely, it's not. They're not going to be a bad team next year. It's just a matter of.
But I think the challenge is like, okay, AFC East. It's still Miami, Buffalo. I mean, we'll see what the Jets do. Right. I don't think the Patriots are there.
Nope.
And you look at the AFC West. I mean, that's going to be
a
dysfunctional division, right? Chargers could emerge, but. We'll see how that goes.
Got to prove
it. And then it looks like the Texans division in the South, right? So the point being is the Ravens just have the toughest road because of their division in the AFC. It's just the toughest, right?
All
Whereas
4
the
teams.
Chiefs have a little easier road given the division. And Buffalo and Miami still,
right,
will be at the top. I mean, there's no question.
Whereas most divisions might have 2 teams contending. Baltimore's division, the AFC North, has all 4, right? They're all going to be in contention again.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that all off season when they draft somebody or whatever, but that's what it looks like right now. All right, moving on to the next game here. The 49ers 34, Lions 31. Lions blow a 17-point lead. Just a crushing loss for Lions fans. And it was very exciting to see the Lions in this position,
it was.
right?
It was
fun. So fun.
Yeah.
And then when they had the 24-7 lead, it was so exciting to see them. They might go to the Super Bowl right now, right?
Yeah,
Like that would be so wild, but
I've said it a couple times. Yeah, it's the most Billsy non-Bills game I've ever seen, right? Because the Lions are the Bills of the NFC in a way, where they're, it's more like the Vikings, but really the Lions are the team we're pulling for. Why? Because they've never won one. Because their fans are as dedicated and have gone through as much crap as we have, right? As
what's the deal with that? What's the deal with the Great Lakes teams just having?
I know, right? Cleveland, Lions,
Cleveland, Detroit, Buffalo, Chicago.
It's
always a hard time.
It's been a rough go, but they have that 24-7 lead at halftime, and you're thinking, wow, things are really going their way. But I said it last week and the week before, that Lions defense is too vulnerable, and I don't like what I'm seeing from them these past couple weeks, because they did the same thing. They had a big lead, blew it, had another lead, kind of let them come back. I'm like, Jesus, stop doing this. You're making me nervous. And when you're facing a roster that's as good as the 49ers, they're going to capitalize, right, on every opportunity you give them. And it just, bad luck was part of it, right? I mean, you get a fumble at a bad time after San Francisco got their first touchdown. You get a fumble, give them the ball right back. They get another touchdown. I mean, it was just one thing after the other. And that second half was disastrous. And then you have, a couple of questionable decisions. I admire Dan Campbell's ability to just say, we're going for it, right? Like, hey, we're going for it. What I didn't like was on both 2 4th down plays in a row, they bombed the field. It's like 4th and 5 and 4th and 2, I think, or 3. And they just bomb it down the field 12 yards or something. I'm like, what? Where are you going with the ball? Like, dude, you need 2-3 yards for your life right here, and you're bombing it down the field. Like, that's not what you should be doing. Have everybody run a 5-yard route and get the ball to somebody. I mean, it was heartbreaking to see, because we know what that's like and we know what it is. And then obviously, the chance to go for the field goal, that's the other play, right? You have the graphic up. I jumped the gun a little on the
nailed it.
Do you agree with the level of aggressiveness? But yeah, that's the other thing, is the not going for the field goal. I agree with that. He's committed. That's what this team does. I don't think in that situation you're all of a sudden going to say, oh, guys, even though this is what we've planned for and what we've done all year and what our mentality is, we're going to suddenly hit the brakes and be conservative and kick this field goal to tie it. Right? Like, no, that's not who they were. They're go for it team.
Yeah,
so
they're not a little different though when you're up 17 in San Francisco, right? I think it's different. You just got to take the point. Playing with a lead's a lot different than a close game or playing from behind.
Yeah.
If you're behind or it's close, I agree with the aggressiveness 100%. But when you're playing with a lead, just keep adding points on.
Yeah.
So I thought they should have went for the 3 there, but really, I mean, I don't totally disagree with the decision, because again, the play's there, just drops the ball.
Right.
You know what I mean? It wasn't a horrible play call, and you could tell they were ready for it. The Lions were ready to execute the play. It's a different outcome if they do get that, right?
Oh, big time. Yeah.
I mean, 31-7 is a lot different than 24-7, so I understand the mentality there, but to be in the position you're in, you got to be a little humble.
Yeah. Right? I mean, I think that still, though, I, as a coach, would not have made that call, but I understand that this is who Dan Campbell is, and he's going to go for it, and he's going to do this. Right. And you can't let the outcome determine how angry you are. And I have stayed true to this with Sean McDermott. He's made some conservative calls that have worked out, and I've still been mad at him, right? Like, no, you should have gone for it, because you can't let it come down to this or whatever, and let it come down to one play or whatever. It's been better of late with Sean McDermott, but same thing with any coach. You got to let them be who they are and trust that it's going to work. I would rather that than have a situation where, well, we have no idea what this guy's going to do, because sometimes he does this and sometimes he does that, and he doesn't really make a decision, and he doesn't really know, or he 100% goes with the analytics. Like, no, you have to play the game of football and be situational and trust your instincts and what you've prepared your guys for. So I commend him for that. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for them, and we're all heartbroken for the Lions.
It's really not the reason they lost. I mean, everyone looks at the points and says, if he gets those or if he takes the 3 there, right, you're up 6, you would win by 3. But really, the change in the game was the fumble by Gibbs.
Yeah, that was huge. Yeah,
that was so huge.
And it was just, it wasn't even
they
like
were flat. The team
yeah.
was just flat in the second half, right? They couldn't move the ball at all. Defense couldn't stop the 49ers at all. I mean, they almost have the interception. It bounces off the guy's face and gets caught by Ayuk. I mean, that's just the ball bounces a different way. It's probably a different outcome, right? So it's just everything went wrong. It wasn't just those 2 4th downs that they didn't get. It was everything went wrong for the Lions in the second half, right? And that happens. And back to our conversation about experience, what succeeds in the postseason? It's Kyle Shanahan. He's been in those situations where he's got, had a big lead and blew it, right? Atlanta in the Super Bowl with the Patriots. He was the offensive coordinator there. I mean, he's just seen it before, so it's, you learn from those mistakes and you know how to get your team motivated to avoid that in the future because he spent so many sleepless nights thinking about those types of games.
And I do trust, there's been a lot of talk in this post game, Dan Campbell said it's hard to keep a team together and they do have some tough decisions coming up and everything. And obviously coaches, although I think their coaches are both staying now. It's tough to repeat and come back and be back in this situation, especially when you're talking about the entire NFC wanting it more, and
right.
Going
in target on their head
the
now.
Same
right.
thing. Yeah. But I do believe that they've proven that their mentality, their makeup, their roster building is effective. The players they targeted, it worked out for them.
Their draft
and they're
class
going
was
to build on it, right? Like, they've really built something that is going to work moving forward. And that's exciting if you're a Lions fan. It reminds me a lot of the Bills when we first made the playoffs and started making runs. And now we've come to expect that and be the team that should be winning. And the Lions are going to get that respect from now on, and they still have to figure out future at quarterback, right? Jared Goff is what he is. He's limited and he's not going to be there forever either.
Right.
But
Had a great year.
Their team roster is built in a way that the quarterback can help you in a lot of ways, but it's not going to mostly be the reason you lose games, right? I would point more at their defense.
Well said. That's well said.
Yeah.
Yeah, their defense, and let's not forget, one of the youngest defenses in the league. I mean,
exactly.
They made it a point last year to go get veterans to bring in, which worked out well for them. But still, Jack Campbell, Brian Branch, they look very promising.
Yeah, Aiden Hutchinson.
Looks absolutely promising. They're only going to get better. You know what I mean? Gibbs is only going to get better for them. I mean, Laporta's a rookie, only going to get better. So that's really a credit to what the Lions built and their coaching staff, right? You made it to the NFC Championship game and we're that close to going to the Super Bowl with what we got 4 or 5 rookies and a handful of first-year players. Yeah. I mean, that's very, very impressive what they did there. And news came out today that Ben Johnson's going to stay with the Lions.
Yes, that's huge.
So I think they're going to be the favorites to win the division next year. And I think they're in the mix, right? They're definitely going to be competitive again next year.
Absolutely.
But to get to the championship game, I understand what Dan Campbell's saying there. It's no guarantees at all. It's just too hard.
Right.
It's just
there's a lot of competitive teams, but they're not going to take that for granted. I think they're going to come in strong again next year. And all you can do is get there and then plan to go ahead, just like the Bills. Like I said, they're really in that position now where they're going to be the favorites in the division next year. They're going to be expected to win playoff games next year. And then it's a matter of, can you step up in the biggest moments?
Yeah, and we were talking about divisions. Well, the NFC North is also retooling. Jordan Love's a real one. Caleb Williams now enters the division. I mean,
presumably,
Kirk Cousins likely coming back. I mean,
maybe, Minnesota has to make decisions. Chicago's rebuilding, at the quarterback position, but they've already got a roster that they want to win now. And it's just, and the Packers, obviously Jordan Love is their future and they've found a way to make that work.
Yeah.
It's not going to be an easy path, but I still think that this team now has proven that they're the ones to beat. They should be the favorites going into next season.
Yeah. It's not weird to think that Jared Goff could be the least talented quarterback in that division.
Right.
Next year.
Yeah.
I mean, Kirk Cousins, he's older now. I think I'd put him ahead of Kirk at this point, but
not a healthy Kirk Cousins, I wouldn't, but yeah.
Kirk's had some good years, but
he's healthy. He's better than Jared Goff. I mean, I would put him there. More reliable, certainly. Yeah. I mean, I like Jared Goff right now. Rams Jared Goff was bad. Lions Jared Goff has really found something of, this is who I am. This is how I work with the skill sets I have. And he can have those huge games where he's got 500 passing yards and 3 touchdowns or whatever. But he doesn't need to be that every day. Whereas, I think Kirk Cousins is more of a guy where you put it in his hands because he wants to execute for you and get it done.
Yeah, before his injury, 2 years ago, he had a phenomenal year. Yeah. And it was all Kirk. There was no, he didn't have a Montgomery and Gibbs helping him out. You know what I mean? So,
And
so I can see the argument there. And Caleb Williams, I mean, if he's even close to his expectation, he's going to be a super talented guy in the NFL, but we'll see how that plays out. All right, Bills news. Bills promote Bobby Babich to DC. Is that surprising for you? I was a little surprised to see this. Once it kind of settled, did a little research, it's like, okay, yeah, no, this makes sense. This guy's getting defensive
other
interviews around the league.
Yes.
He's been there since 2017. Dad's a renowned, coach, and Bob Babich. And you hear the guy speak, he's super articulate. Yeah. So,
and he's already proven, even without the history, right? I mean, under McDermott, he was the safeties coach, and we had the best safety tandem in the NFL.
Been there since year
one.
In
the NFL, right? With Hyde and Poyer, best safety tandem in the NFL. Then now he became the linebackers coach, and what happened? Our linebackers, he turned Terrell Bernard into a star. He had Matt Milano, obviously, but then Matt Milano went down, and Terrell Dotson, who was a guy that I used to say I don't even want him on the field, right? He turned him into a reliable player who had what was it? At one point, the highest PFF graded linebacker. I mean, it was crazy the amount that he gets out of the players. And that's just the kind of coach you want to keep around. And everybody who's around him says this guy's going to be a head coach someday, right? And that means the longer you keep him in your room, the better you are, right? You basically have a second head coach in the room on defense. He's been under McDermott this whole time, so I think that's why McDermott felt comfortable promoting him. He doesn't need to be the play caller. I think we know, obviously, a head coach needs to be a head coach first. And even though Sean McDermott wanted to be the guy calling the plays this year, he needs to focus on what he can do as a head coach and manage the whole situation. Pass that off to somebody like Babich, who is a rising star and needs a chance to prove himself. And like I said, best safety tandem in the league. I would argue best linebacker team when Milano is healthy. And now you're going into the defense. Well, that makes us the number one defense in the league.
You didn't even mention he got Tremaine Edmonds paid. You know what I mean?
Like, right.
Tremaine came into the league as a super young player. He's a 19-year-old coming into the league. Got him paid, right? So it's almost a perfect track record. I can't think of any negatives.
Correct. That's why
from him being the safeties coach in 2017. I mean, obviously that worked out.
And the
linebackers have been phenomenal for the Bills. So there's no negatives, right?
The fact that he was interviewing with other teams forced your hand, right? It was, you either make this guy DC or he's gone, and you couldn't let somebody with this amount of talent go. The fact that he stayed also shows his commitment to Buffalo, to this team, to what he's worked for. He says, hey, I've put in the work with these guys. I know what's here. I want to get it done. We win a Super Bowl next year, this guy's a head coach. There's no question about that in my mind, right? He knows that, and he wants to get it done. He could have gone to another team and said, you know what, I want to prove myself outside of McDermott and step away and see what I could be outside of Sean McDermott's system. But instead, he stayed, and that shows commitment to getting it done. And knowing
if you went back and looked at like the press conferences from the preseason, he has a lot of really great things to say about Sean McDermott.
Yeah.
And how Sean McDermott evolves, and he's bought into that, right? He was with Sean McDermott back in Carolina in 2011. He was a totally different person back then. So seems like they're speaking the same language. They got some chemistry going on. And a guy who's been here since 2017, he's seen the defensive calls evolve over time. He can tell the entire story because he's been there in the rooms, drawing up the plays, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a lot. That's a lot, right?
One of my favorite ideas here is, McDermott is keeping these guys around him. All the trash talk on McDermott, the whole Leslie Frazier situation, the way he's fired coaches in the past. People don't like him. He's hard to work with. Well, guess what? There are guys who are dedicated and believe in him. And I've never heard a player really say a bad thing about him. So although there's articles and there's things coming out saying that, we all know the Tyler Dunn article this year and talking about how coaches and, he didn't work well with, this guy, that guy, whoever, Dayball, whoever it was, the guys who are here and around him are staying for a reason, right? They believe in him. They are committed to what he's doing. And that tells you that there is good going on. And, I retweeted today, Aaron from Cover One said something like, are we going to have a whole article in series and media fury about Bobby Babich and how these coaches are staying to be with Sean McDermott rather than leaving and
Right.
because he's so bad to work with or whatever? No, this is a feel good idea and good story. So of course they're not going to write those, but I think the guys in the room know where the focus is and can tune out that outside noise,
and
even
they're
though
so
he tends
close,
to get a bad track record.
You went toe to toe with Kansas City, who again, Super Bowl team. I mean, but you're a play away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
with all the injuries, yeah.
Right. So
an injury away. Give any of those injuries back. One of them, just one.
Right.
And I think we win.
So it's he's looking to get him over the hump and get the credit, get the head coach job. It's it's fun. Plus he knows the room. That helps a lot, right? He definitely probably has a great relationship with all these guys being there so long. He's one of the original guys.
Every
from
player,
2017, like Hyde, like Poyer,
Yeah.
So there's a lot to be said there.
Ryan Talbot also had an article about players quoting and saying that they believe in Bobby Babich and how much they are committed to him, which is an awesome thing to hear from the players around him.
And I think it was
everybody is bought in with this guy.
I think it was Sal Capaccio said, Bobby's dad, Bob Babich, he's the defensive coordinator or linebackers coach for the Bears for a couple of years. The year they went to the Super Bowl and all that stuff. And Brian Urlacher actually had Bob announce him for the Hall of Fame. So that's how close they were, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
What kind of family they are, right? What they mean to their players. That's a big thing, right? You didn't ask your son, you didn't ask your family, you asked your linebackers coach.
Yeah.
So it kind of gives you a little insight to how these guys operate, with their players. But I think it's a good hire. Suddenly, these coordinators are pretty young, right? Like Joe Brady's 34, Bobby Babich is 40, right? They got a ton of experience between the two of them, but I mean, they're suddenly young, whereas we're looking at like Sean McDermott, Leslie Frazier was kind of an older guy, old school guy. So hopefully innovation comes with that. I think this is a year where the Bills do need to innovate the defense a little bit.
Yes,
it's just been the same for so long where it's like, you got to evolve some way or another. There's so much film out there on McDermott's defense now because they had such continuity.
With Hyde and Poyer situation, that's always been a key piece of the McDermott defense since he's been in Buffalo. And now, one or both might be gone. And that is, a big hole in this defense to fill because the backfield has really been reliable with those two guys there. And, I'd like to see, like you said, I do believe that Bobby Babich can put his flag onto this defense.
It's also a really fun name to say. Now that I've said it, Bobby Babich.
Bobby Babich.
It's badass. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Badass Bobby Babich.
What coming up to the plate? Bobby Babich. Bam! Home run.
I feel like there's a lot of rednecks around that are gonna love that. Man, Babich. All right. So looking at the offseason, new coordinator, right? What's Brandon Beane need to do heading into the offseason to make sure that his first year defensive coordinator now is successful, right? Hyde, a lot of questions about him retiring. Will they re-sign him? Don't know. Milano coming back. Bernard's definitely got the job next year, but
I think
questions around Trey White as well. Questions around the edge players, right? A lot of movement on the defensive line. So
this is where that continuity really comes into play. They know each other. They have a relationship. So what does Brandon Beane need to do? He needs to look him in the eye and say, look, here's the tough decisions we have to make. What do you think is best, right? You have to trust the guy you hired to be that coach now, right? This is going to be your defense. We, budget wise, we'd like to sign XYZ guy, or we'd like to keep everybody. That can't happen. So Brandon Beane has to bring those decisions to Babich. Not that Babich is going to make them, but to get his true and honest feedback and say like, okay, Trey White, aging player, he's hurt a couple of years in a row. We're not sure. We're going to rework him this way, but playing time or whatever. Safeties, we need to draft one. We're going to sign one. We want you to tell us your top 3 guys out there in free agency within this budget that you'd like to see in this defense. Something like that. Like you have to trust the guy you put in that position. Obviously, Sean McDermott still has some say in that too. And now it's a matter of trusting the coaches you put in place and letting them give their feedback and input and build this roster the way that they envision it, right? Because you can't make your own defense and put together the pieces you want and then tell somebody else to play and execute it, right? Because that's not how it works. You need to let them build and execute and and dial things up and in order for it to, be a well-oiled machine. And I think that Bean and McDermott understand that, and they do that with the guys they trust, right? Like they allow them input to make decisions and give feedback. And we've already talked about the fact that Babich is close with these players. He knows the business side. He knows, look, these are the guys who are going to be there moving forward. And here's the guys I want to retain and what I think they can do. And, Bean will make it happen, I think.
Right.
So
yeah, I don't think there's a lot Brandon Bean needs to do. I mean, obviously personnel upgrade, always great. Any way you can get them within the cap or the draft, right?
Yeah.
But I think one thing about Bobby's, he's been with Sean McDermott since 2017. So he's seen what's been successful. He's seen, kind of some of the failures. So I think they got to be hip to hip here, right? And I think that's maybe why they make this move to promote him. I think it's a great move, right? It's you basically are just evolving Sean McDermott's defense, but he's been here so long, they got to know each other inside and out by now. You know what I mean? So it's I think it's a continuation of what we've seen, and it's just the natural. There's no huge change here, right? We're not going to go to a 3-4, not going to, bring in other systems. It's just a continuation of what they've built, and I think putting somebody else's spin on it, I think is a great move at this point. I was thinking, Sean McDermott's got to give up play calling duties just because there is so much continuity that teams are figuring out how to play them, right? So you need other ideas and more collaboration. I think this is a good move to start that process. So we'll see how it plays out, right? We're going to see how is Bobby different than Sean? We'll find out. We don't know for sure who will call plays, but I would fully assume it's Bobby. I don't think you give him the title and then continue to call plays, right? I don't think that happens, but I mean, that's definitely been done before. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah, it's a great move. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. All right, Commanders and Seahawks, the only remaining head coaching jobs, like you said earlier, Ben Johnson staying in Detroit. You got to think he was probably the top candidate.
Yeah, that was a surprise.
Did see, Adam Schefter put out a thing that the Commanders were actually flying to Detroit to interview Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson. So there was no, job offer or anything like that.
Right.
But got to think, looking at it, what Ben Johnson's done with that Detroit offense, that he probably would have been the top candidate. But now that changes. So we haven't heard any movement with Seattle, really. I mean, Dan Quinn seems to be the front runner from the media, but really nothing official there.
No, yeah. So clearly my guess is they were hoping to interview a couple more guys that were either, Baltimore or Detroit or something like that, and try and find their best fit. But I think that they have their candidates in mind, at least. The Commanders' job, I have no idea about, right? Like that one is really up in the air to me. Can they go back to Belichick and say, hey, you want to come over here and rebuild this? But again, I don't think that's a very good match of Belichick, in today's. How about that? The way things have worked out for Belichick, exactly as I said weeks ago, nobody should hire this guy because he hasn't proven him, not modern in the NFL. All the things I said now they're saying on ESPN and everything else because he's likely not going to get one of these jobs and likely not going to be coaching next year.
He's not letting his guard down. He's going in there saying, yeah, I want personnel control. I'm going to blow up your roster. We're going to do the Patriot
and
way here.
Nobody wants to do that. And they're smart enough to know that hasn't worked out the past few years. So, yeah, I mean, it's these two coaching jobs. I think the Seahawks have their guy in mind, and that'll be announced soon. Now that they can't interview or they're on there.
What is
Commanders?
This?
So I have no idea who's going to get that job.
Local Seattle news site says that Mike McDonald from the Baltimore Ravens has had an interview. Yep. He's had 2 interviews with the Seahawks. Ben Johnson from Detroit had 2 interviews with the Seahawks. He's now out of the race. So Mike McDonald from Baltimore
could be. Yeah,
that's a top candidate.
I think the Dan Quinn rumors.
Still in the mix. They do mention
Yep.
he's still in the mix as well.
I do think that could, but I think they're close to a resolution. The Commanders are now trying to, as they should, really find the guy who's the right fit and really wants to be there to do it, right? Like this is the hardest task to take over. But at the same time, I've said it before that opportunity is for a good young coach to come in and build it the way he wants to build it and try and succeed with that, because you're going to have all the leeway in the world in those first 3 years, at least, with this Commanders roster, because you're basically starting over.
Yeah.
And
one good thing about the Commanders, they're going to have a quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Whereas if you look at Seattle, though, it's like Geno Smith's 33. He underperforms at times. I know he's been pretty good, but you'd like to see an upgrade there. And I don't think they're in a great position to go get a quarterback right now. So if I'm looking at head coaching jobs, that one doesn't seem. I think the Commanders is favorable right now.
I would disagree there, but because you're talking about Seattle's half a game away from the playoffs, so I definitely would rather be, if you're talking success right now, obviously the Seahawks are there, and they have a few things to rebuild and more levers to pull and all that. Commanders, again, building from scratch. If I'm the ownership there, if I'm the GM, I'm thinking I want to bring in somebody who's going to, execute their vision, who has a great vision and that is young and capable and going to be our guy, right, for the next 10, 20 years.
Yeah, and I don't think the Commanders are too far out. The ownership, the sale of the team's really what disrupted them this year. I thought they were a good team early on, right? Sam Howell actually looked good at times, right?
Yeah.
There was a time period he was leading the league in passing yards. But when news broke that, okay, Ron Rivera is going to get fired, they traded away your two best edge players. Things changed quickly, right? They lost 9 in a row or something. But from a pure talent perspective, you still have a top, interior defensive line. There's 2 good running backs to like here. Terry McLaurin's, if he had a good quarterback, he's a top receiver. He's consistent every year, So there's a lot to like about that job, but I definitely see what you're saying about Seattle. Is they're,
they're close.
They're so close.
They're close. But so, do you have any idea who the guy is going to be for the Commanders? I don't. Like, they could hire anybody, and I would be like, oh, okay, I'm surprised. But as long as it isn't Belichick at this point, I would be.
I really thought it was going to be Ben Johnson, like a lot of people.
Yeah, but he decided no. So, makes you wonder.
What's interesting about it is the new ownership's doing their due diligence.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think that's
they're not really like Carolina and they're just hiring the first guy.
Correct. It's. I think it's more important for them, right? They want to find the guy who has the right vision that aligns with what they're thinking, or impresses them the most. So they absolutely should be interviewing all over the board and trying to make that match work. You got the list of people they've interviewed.
Hog Haven. Ben Johnson's had a couple interviews. Stay with the Lions. That's the first one. Aaron Glenn's had 2 interviews. Mike McDonald's interviewed with them twice from the Ravens, as we mentioned. Also, Texans Bobby Slowick. He's had 2 interviews, but he ended up signing a new deal with the Texans.
Right. He said he's going to stay there because that would have been a great. I thought he was the candidate in my mind. That would have been a great fit there.
So really, Dan Quinn, Mike McDonald, and Aaron Glenn are really who's left. Oh, and then Ravens associate head coach, Coach Anthony Weaver, has had 2 interviews as well.
Yeah, that could be an interesting hire. Again, that's the kind of out-of-the-box thinking that I think could work in their favor if they find the right guy, right? Everybody wants the next Sean McVay, but you're going to get, somebody who can at least have the foundation and will have no excuses in 3 years as to why they're not succeeding because they're going to have their hand in all of it.
Yeah, Aaron Glenn's interesting. Dan Quinn for the Commanders just feels weird.
Yeah, it does.
But that's a good sign for them if they can pull that off. I think he would choose Seattle based on his history with them and relationship he has with the ownership there. But Dan Quinn knows the division, right? He knows the Cowboys. He's played big games versus the Eagles. There's a little bit of an advantage there. But it's looking like it's going to be a defensive coach there, based on the interviews that I'm seeing on this site, which is interesting.
Right. Other than the Ravens. Right, like that was, interesting.
Well, because you're drafting likely Drake May or Jaden Daniels, right? You would think they'd want an offensive mind to help their quarterback develop. But yeah,
Right,
the only interviews they have who's left, I mean, I think they're maybe banking on Ben Johnson, but the remaining people that they interviewed are all defensive coaches.
Yeah.
So
we'll see. We'll see.
And then when Andy Reid retires, maybe Vrabel's in on that one. I'm kidding. He's not going to retire.
5 years from now. Yeah, right. That's the rumor.
Yeah.
Let the rumors fly.
It'd be nice, though. Yeah, if Andy Reid just got out of the way for the Bills, that would be ideal, right? That would
exactly.
Be ideal.
Yeah, that's what we're looking forward to. He owns us for sure. In the playoffs.
All right, last topic of the night. Quick look at the Super Bowl. How are we feeling about the Super Bowl? Who we favoring here?
Anybody but Kansas City, so that means obviously San Francisco. I mean, that's
Brock Purdy.
How I feel about it. Yeah, Brock Purdy, Super Bowl champ. You know, I think the Super Bowl MVP. I mean, come on, dear San Francisco, do not be the Ravens. Do not be the Ravens. You have Christian McCaffrey. Run him. I'm not kidding. Every single play. Make his legs fall off. He'll do it because this is the damn Super Bowl. Just turn and hand it to him. Brock Purdy should have about 3 passes for 6 yards in this game. And they should be to Christian McCaffrey.
You still have Chris Jones. You still have Nick Bolton. Right? That's going to be a tough task.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care. Their Chiefs are weak against the run, and you have the running back who can do it against anybody, right? And the fact that, he did fall on his neck at the end of that game, that was scary. He flipped over and fell on his neck.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he'll be good to go. He's got the 2 weeks to prepare. And again, it's the Super Bowl, so he's going to say, give me the ball every time. And they have playmakers, obviously, in the passing game, too. So, you can't sleep on those guys. The defense is still going to have to be ready, and that's going to open things up for Christian McCaffrey to do his thing. Control the clock, give the ball to him as much as possible, and, you're going to win the game. I think you'll win the game because you just have to keep the ball out of their hands and control the game, and I think that's the way to do it. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what the Chiefs are going to do to them.
don't let the Chiefs win another one, please. Yeah. Please, just don't.
I'm feeling the Chiefs in this one just because Pat Mahomes can control the game. Kansas City's defense is good, and I think San Francisco's been kind of sloppy, right?
They have been
2-2 in the last couple games of the regular season. I mean, we saw the game versus the Lions; they came out sloppy. They almost lost the game to the Packers. I mean, the Packers blew that one.
They should have lost versus the Lions. Yeah.
I mean, it hasn't been pretty for San Francisco, but the Chiefs are not going to come out that way and be sloppy, right? And if they get a 17-point lead at you at the half, they're not going to mess it up like the Lions. So my initial thoughts are it looks like Chiefs for me. But yeah, we'll continue to talk
Super Bowl
about
MVP.
Yeah.
Christian
we have 3 shows until the Super Bowl. So
that's right. Yeah. Christian McCaffrey. Do it, please. Please don't make us suffer through another Chiefs championship.
All right, got a couple shows coming up Thursday. Check us out. We're going to be talking. We're not going to talk about the Pro Bowl, I promise, even though the show's called Pro Bowl Preview. We're going to get into the best players around the league for each position, best cornerbacks of 2023.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks of best 2023.
More like our all-pro preview, I would say.
Right. That's a good way to say it. But we can try to talk about the Pro Bowl, but I just don't even know where to start with that. But so that's Thursday. Tune in. Get involved in the conversation. Let us know where we're right. Let us know where we're wrong. What's your thoughts on who the best players are for each position?
Yeah.
Going into next week, I'm going to touch on the Bills roster. Going to kind of look through the entire Bills roster and see where's the big needs. Maybe rank the needs around the roster. Obviously, receiver comes out, edge comes out. I think those are the top 2 right out the gate. But there's other needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kyle Allen, backup quarterback, right?
Got to get
what are we doing about that? Just kind of get our initial thoughts on free agency and the draft. Although we've been all in on the draft and all in on free agency, it's kind of our first show, just kind of breaking down the offseason.
And the
and
draft.
Then we'll get you ready. Then get you ready for the Super Bowl. We're doing a show next Thursday, talking Super Bowl. Give our picks. Check out our spread. Maybe do some. Some bets, positional bets.
The prop bets are always fun. Yeah, you got to.
Yep. So that's what we got coming up. So we hope you tune in, and then we are headed to Built in Buffalo starting in February after the Super Bowl. Looking forward to that opportunity. Looking forward to get to know everybody over there, and hopefully if you follow our show, hop over. you'll still be able to find us in our normal channels, but we're adding some other ones. So hopefully you'll follow us over there.
Yeah, looking forward to this for sure. That partnership's going to be a lot of fun. Those guys are really great. And yeah, we're looking forward to be part of that and still doing our thing. You'll still always get our content and our picks and all that good stuff. So as always, thanks for kicking it with us.
Deuces.